Let's look at this chart and this one. These two charts tell a story that most people don't expect. Russia's economy is roughly 8 times smaller than China's and nearly 13 times smaller than the United States. Its growth rate is a fraction of either. By every economic measure, Russia looks less like a superpower and more like a mid-sized developing country. And yet, Russia sits at the UN Security Council, holds the world's largest nuclear arsenal, and has kept the entire Western world attention fixed on its military action for years. So today, we are going to answer these two questions. How did a country with so much natural resources end up with an economy this relatively small? And how does it manage to compete on the world stage anyway? To understand this paradox, we first need to understand what the Russian economy looks like from the inside. The simplest way to think about this is that Russia is less of a modern, diversified economy and more of an enormous energy company that happens to have a government attached to it. Russia's export in 2024 totaled around $377 billion, and roughly 80% of that came from energy and raw minerals. Almost nothing from technology, advanced manufacturing, or high-value services. And China alone buys nearly a third of everything Russia sells to the world. That single fact tells you how isolated and dependent Russia's economy has become. The state directly controls or heavily influences between 40 and 60% of the entire economy. When companies don't face real competition, they have little to no reason to innovate or modernize, and that structural rigidity runs through the entire Russian system. The number that brings all of this into human focus is GDP per capita. Russia sits roughly at $12,000 to $13,000 per year. The United States is around 80,000, Germany is around 50,000. So while Russia projects power on the world stage, and since 2022, the wave of sanctions following the invasion of Ukraine has made things significantly worse. Russia was cut off from Western technology, financial systems, and consumer markets. Its dependency on China has deepened to a degree that now raises real questions about Russian economic sovereignty. Now, Russia is not without strengths. It has an educated workforce, genuine engineering talent, and it is one of the world's largest wheat exporters. Those strengths matters because they make the overall pictures even more tragic. Russia has everything, literally everything it needed to build a truly diversified modern economy. The fact that it didn't is not an accident. It is the result of a very specific trap, one with a name and a well-documented history. That trap is called the resource curse. Now, it is important to understand how Russia is able to maintain this process, exporting massive resources and keep making the easy money. It is simply because they just have a lot of natural resources. Russia alone has the world's largest natural gas reserve, and they have the second largest reserve of coal. They are only second to the US in the production of oil. Now, what if I tell you that this resource abundance is the thing that is holding back the Russian economy? This seems totally backward, but they have no reason to be more than a huge oil company because all they gotta do is to sell their natural resources. Russia exports are heavily reliant on energy and raw minerals as they are what makes 80% of all what they sell. So they have no reason to innovate or go towards a diversified economy. And Russia ended up with a vast natural wealth that kept the state afloat while ensuring the broader economic transformation never happened. The Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, but Russia didn't build a new country from scratch. It inherited the Soviet Union, the nuclear arsenal, the permanent UN Security Council seat, the military doctrine, and one of the largest defense manufacturing complexes. This inheritance is the foundation of Russia's military power today, and it matters enormously for the economics. Building a world-class military from nothing is extraordinarily expensive and takes generations. Russia never had to do that. It got a massive head start for free, and maintaining an inheritance, however expensive, is far cheaper than building one. That head start is what allows a $2.5 trillion economy to project military power that a $2.5 trillion economy could never realistically build from scratch. But the inheritance alone doesn't explain everything. Russia spends between 4% and 7% of its entire GDP on defense, compared to about 3.5% for the United States and around 2% of most of Europe. So Russia is putting biting a much larger slice of a smaller pie into military capability than its rivals are. On top of that, Russia doesn't try to match the US across every military dimension. Instead, it concentrates resources on specific high-leverage capabilities, nuclear modernization, hypersonic missiles, and cyber warfare. And then there is nuclear deterrence, arguably the most cost-effective military investment in history. Russia can deter a direct US attack on its territory just as effectively as the US can deter a Russian one, because both sides know any direct conflict risks nuclear escalation, where neither side survives. This principle, mutually assured destruction, acts as a great equalizer, allowing a mid-sized economy to sit at the same strategic table as the world's largest. Now, the war in Ukraine has exposed real cracks in this model. Russia's conventional military performance was significantly weaker than its reputation suggested. Equipment was poorly maintained, logistics failed, and corruption eroded everything. And that last point is not a coincidence. The same institutional decay that weakened the civilian economy quietly hollowed out parts of the military too, even while the defense budget kept growing. We started with a paradox. How does a country with a mid-sized economy still project superpower-level influence? And what we have found out is that the answer to that question and the answer to why the economy is weak in the first place are, as promised, the same story. Russia's oil wealth removed the pressure to build a diversified economy. It funded a political system with weak accountability and deep corruption. The Soviet inheritance gave Russia a military head start no amount of GDP could quickly replicate, and ongoing energy revenues made it just affordable enough to maintain. And the choice to keep spending on military power rather than economic transformation has been repeated year after year for 3 decades. Russia has been living off 2 inheritances simultaneously: the oil beneath its ground and the military infrastructure beneath its government, while the window to build something new in their place has been slowly closing.